Good evening. Let me welcome you to tonight's meeting of the Murfreesboro City School Board. We are honored tonight to have students from Mitchell Nielsen School along with their principal, Robin Newell. And Robin, I'll ask you if you'll introduce those students to us and let them lead us in our pledge.
Sure, I'll be happy to. All right, boys and girls, y'all want to come stand up right here beside me. This is Charlie Arkenberg and his sister Lily. They are second grade leaders at Mitchell Nielsen. And Zane Long is a fifth grade leader at Mitchell Nielsen. And Mark Tate is a second grade leader. And we'd like to lead you in the pledge tonight, and then we want to share some of the things we're doing at the Leadership School.
It'd be great.
Y'all please stand.
I'll stand.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now let us observe a moment of silence. Thank you.
As you know, Mitchell Nielsen is focusing on leadership this school year, and I brought some of my students to share some of the things that we're doing at Mitchell Nielsen. And Mark, I'd like for you to go first, if you'll come step right up here for me, please, sir. And I would like for you to hold that and tell our wonderful school board what it means to be a leader at Mitchell Nielsen.
I put first things first, and I work first, then I play. I spend my time on things that are most important. This means I say no to things that I should not do. I set my priorities, I make a schedule, and follow my plan. I am disciplined and organized.
Good job. Thank you, Mark. All right, those are part of the 7 habits that we are teaching children at Mitchell Nielsen, and the children are learning each of those 7 habits, and I'd like for Charlie to tell us what his favorite habit is.
Habit number 3, put first things first. Work first, then play.
All right, good job. Good job. All right, Lily, will you tell us what your favorite habit is?
Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. When I come home, when I want to be a better reader, so I plan on reading every night.
Good job. That sounds fabulous. Now, our 5th grade leader is Zane Long. And Zane, I understand that you have a song for us. Is that correct? All right, you want to perform it for us? That's my girl. You want me to hold it? Would it be better because you have hand motions, don't you? Okay.
I throw my hands up in the air sometimes for the 7 habits. I'm working every day to change my life with the 7 habits. 'Cause we go rock this school, we gon' do this right. We gon' learn these things so we can take flight. We're the eagles, habits in our sight. We gon' learn these things so we can take flight.
Very good. Now, Ms. Newell, will you take just a minute and tell us a little bit about the leader program and what's happened so far at Mitchell Nielsen?
I thought you were going to get Miss Newell to dance for us.
No. Miss Newell is the leader, not the dancer. We have adopted Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we believe that children shouldn't wait until they are adults to learn these principles for living. We want to teach them from the time they're in preschool on up. So we are teaching these 7 habits to the children, and the first 3 talk about how to have self-discipline and to understand that your influence and what you should be concerned about and how you make your own choices and your own attitude. You choose those your own attitude. And then the next 3 habits talk about how we work together with other people and how we try to compromise and help each other and think win-win. And then the 7th habit is about balancing all that together, that you have to have play as part of your work, and balance feels best. And so we are teaching our children those habits. And what we've done so far in that effort is this summer we had 3 very intensive days of training for the faculty. And we didn't talk about kids and we didn't talk about what it was going to look like at school, but the faculty and staff had to own those 7 habits because we have to model those and live those and use that vocabulary before children can do it. So we met at MTSU. Our partners at MTSU gave us a gorgeous place to meet there, and we met for 3 days. And with the exception of 2 of our staff, every single person was there all 3 days, even our part-time people who were not required to come at all. And it was pretty gut-wrenching. And so we've done that. We've changed the environment of our school. There are leadership quotes up and around, and we're doing our best to make sure that these children see those habits, that they see us living those habits, and we incorporate that into everything we do, and we think it's making a huge difference. And I'm hearing from parents already, and we're just going to keep doing it. And as you can see, it's something that they can grab hold of, and we're just as proud as we can be. It was a real hard time for me to pick children to come up here today because, I have 800 and they're all leaders, and any one of them would have done just as good, but they're awfully cute, aren't they?
They are.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Students, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We appreciate you coming.
Ms. Newell, thank you so much. And Lily, Zane, Mark, and Charlie, you were all awesome. My college kids could use those 7 habits.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, moving on with our order of business tonight, approval of the agenda. You had a chance to look it over. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Renier.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Motion made and second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Dr. Gilbert, communication.
I'm pleased to announce that Murfreesboro City Schools, in partnership with MTSU, has been awarded a Math Science Partnership Grant from the Tennessee Department of Education. This is a mini grant, and it's in the amount of $61,840. This will be used for professional development this fall. We have to expend the money by December. We'll be offering professional development in the areas of science and math. Rebecca Few of Murfreesboro City Schools, and also Lee McNeil of MTSU, who heads up the MTeach program at MTSU, will be working with us and leading that grant. Involves people like Pat Patterson, Jeremy Winters, and several others from MTSU. So we're very pleased with that, and thank MTSU for partnering with us on that. Also, we've been asked to present again this year at the Superintendent Study Council. This will be the 2nd year in a row that we will be have been asked to present, and Carissa Brooks will be heading that up, and also Jess Graham. The Outreach Department would like to thank the following community partners for their participation in National Night Out. This is a program that is headed up by the Police Department. It's always held the first Tuesday in August. And our part was at Franklin Heights, and so we have these partners: Linebaugh Library, the Mobile Health Unit, St. Thomas Rutherford, Greenhouse Ministries, Barnabas Vision, Read to Succeed, the Hope Clinic, the DARE officers, Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue, Linda Root, the Tennessee Center for Applied Technology, and also Target were strong partners in that program. And I know that Ms. Newell and some of her faculty were there, and she has talked to me about that, and it was a wonderful program at Franklin Heights that night. Bradley Academy has received $2,000 in a grant, an ABC grant, Arts Builds Community. This grant will provide students who are involved in the Bradley Academy Musical Theater with transportation and also technical theater education. And this is a real asset because Bradley is currently in a fundraising mode to go and perform at a workshop and to have a workshop in Atlanta, Georgia, but there will be performances involved with that. ESP has again this year been awarded a LEAP grant, which is an after-school grant. It really has to do with leftover lottery funds, and this is the amount of $400,000. These funds will be used at Black Fox, John Pittard, Northfield, Overall Creek, Reeves Rogers, and Scales. And then we have also received a 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant in the amount of $246,200, and that funding will be used for after-school activities at Bradley, Cason Lane, Hobgood, and Mitchell Nelson. Northfield sixth grade teacher Billy Joe Thompson has been awarded a $1,000 grant through a mini grant from the Tennessee STEM Leadership Academy for Engineering as Elementary. Engineering as Elementary is a program that also has been used at Hobgood, and it really has to do with practical application of science and math. So Northfield is very interested in becoming a STEM-focused school, actually a STEAM-focused school, and so this will certainly help that. The Outreach Department expresses appreciation to the following for their donations. Mitchell Bowen of Michael's Homes for $100 for Franklin Heights National Night Out. The Murfreesboro Lionesses Club for the Backpack Food Program. Tim and Peggy Seneker, $100 for the Gems Girl Camp, and also Advanced Financial for $400 for the Gems Camp, and then Krista Phillips for $100 for Franklin Heights. Mitchell Nelson has a very strong partnership with Third Baptist Church, and so they are thanking them for the 6th annual back-to-school luncheon for the faculty and the staff. Third Baptist also provided over 140 backpacks full of school supplies for their students, and also they provide lunch buddies, tutors, and volunteers for various other schools. Mitchell Nelson would also like to thank St. Paul's Episcopal Church for their work with the backpack program and school supplies, and members of St. Paul's are certainly key partners in tutoring our Franklin Heights students. In fact, they really contributed to that program when it first began and have continued their support of that. And then Mitchell Nelson would also like to thank Calvary Baptist Church for their donation to help purchase uniform and school supplies. And they would finally like to thank Bob Parks Realty for donating supply bags to every teacher in the school. Finally, we'd like to remind everyone that the City Schools Foundation will have their foundation and fashions on Thursday, September 11th from 5:30 to 7:45 at Stones River Country Club. Individual tickets may be purchased for $40 and reserve tickets for $55, and you can do that by calling the City Schools office at 893-2313. And I have to tell you, if you want to laugh, that is the place to get it. Liz McPhee is just extraordinary as the MC, and she will be doing that again this year, and it is well worth the time. It will make you feel so much better to go and just have an afternoon of laughter. So I encourage everyone to do that. And those are your communications.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Appreciate it. We have a lot of community support for our school system throughout businesses and churches and other areas and folks within the city of Murfreesboro. All right, consent items.
Your consent items are before you. They include your minutes, the approval of school feeds, board policies, and also the recommendation of adding Jenny Allman of State Farm, and also Dr. Joseph Hayes, and I'm afraid I'm saying that name wrong, but maybe not, of Children's Dentistry of Murfreesboro to the Board of the Trustees.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent item?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. I have a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. King. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, action items.
I'm really excited about the first one. We haven't had this in a few years, and I think it's critically important that we recognize these teachers. This is the first year, I guess, in a couple now that we have had tenure recommendations. As you know, the state law changed, and the employees had to have at least 5 years with Murfreesboro City. That was a change instead of 3. And also their tenure is tied to performance effectiveness levels of 4 or 5, which are above expectations or significantly above expectations. So, and those have to be for the last 2 consecutive years, too. So I want to read aloud those names before you take a vote, and then I know that we have a couple of these teachers with us, and so after you take your vote, I would like for them to come to the podium. But I would like to read those names, and these are the recommendations that we have for you to vote on tonight. Mary Allison at Bradley, Taisha Batts at Cason Lane, Angela Boonyi at Discovery School, Carissa Chrisman, Mitchell Nelson, Denise Crumball, Mitchell Nelson, Jessica Graham, Scales, Kimberly Margajack, Black Fox, Katrina Gannon, Bradley, Aaron Phillips, Hobgood, Ashley Pro, Cason Lane, Sayward Ratliff, Mitchell Nelson, Cherry Ross, Overall Creek, Kimberly Snow, Cason Lane, and Dennis Van Dyke from Black Fox. And those are before you for a vote to approve tenure for Murfreesboro City Schools.
Those of you that are here, would you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you, ladies, and we're glad to have you in our system. And I know you're bound to do a good job, or you wouldn't be on this list. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve this list of teachers for tenure?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
Ms. Phillips, I'm sorry, Ms. Rainier and Ms. Smith. Okay? Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And of course, there are none. All right, thank you very much. Congratulations, ladies.
Thank you all for coming. This is not something that I asked them to do. They did this on their own, but I think certainly they represent the best of Murfreesboro, and anyone who receives tenure now with the process that is in place, that the state has put in place, really is saying something.
We appreciate you being here. And I think this entire board would encourage as many teachers as possible to attend our meetings. We'd love to have this room filled every time we meet. So thank you for being here. All right.
Okay.
Do I recognize you're going to do it yourself?
You can recognize who you want
Go
to.
ahead.
You can be nice to him this time. We have Randall Bennett with us from TSBA, and I'm going to turn that over to any discussion over to him at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. Chairman, each of you will find at your place a blue folder. The folder has several things in it. I'd like to cover those. First of all, on the left-hand side, you have the administrator's perception of director's performance objectives. That's part of the evaluation that we will mail to them. This is not anything that you as a board complete, but I wanted you to have it to see it. Now, I know that Dr. Tammy Grissom and Mr. Campbell and Dr. Gilbert have been working very hard on making sure that the full instrument for the evaluation is up to date and consistent with what the board wants. If you'll notice the title page, this is for the 13-14 year, which we have just finished. So if you look, I looked at that initially and had one of those little moments, and I thought, okay, I remember now. So that's for the 2013-14 year. If you open it up, the first couple of pages, actually the first 2 pages deal with the board's relationship with the director. Community relationships, staff and personnel relationships on the first page, facilities and finance, vision, and student achievement on the second page. These are the more subjective things that you as a board member will rate Dr. Gilbert on based on your interactions with her and your perception of her performance on each of those factors. Now, if you look at Appendix C, you will also see the annual objectives and where you have been on that, and I believe that Dr. Gilbert will be providing the documentation as of Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Okay. So you will get that, and you will need that as far as filling out this last page here, last 2 pages. Our goal is to get everybody with the proper forms that they need and back to us by the 12th of September so that we can come back. I believe it's the 23rd we're scheduled. Is that correct? Let me look. Yes, I believe it's your meeting on the 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah, to go over the full evaluation of all the scores and how the means and the averages look and different things like that, and answer any questions that you might have about the evaluations at that time. I think what we wanted to do tonight is to either approve this instrument as is, or if you wish to make any changes to it, do that. Now, I've also provided each of you with a self-addressed stamped envelope so that if we do approve this instrument tonight, you can go ahead and get started on it as far as that goes, and as soon as you get the information from Dr. Gilbert next Tuesday, you'll be able to complete the evaluation and get it back to us easily by the 12th of September. So let me stop talking and ask if you have any questions or concerns about the instrument.
Okay. Ms. Phillips?
Mr. Campbell, I would just like to suggest that perhaps we need to have
an overview, and our hard copies of the test scores have some idea of what our hard copy, and get that before we have to fill out the evaluation document. Just a little bit of some more insight, some more data. Thank you.
I can get those to you by Tuesday.
Okay.
They're released now.
Now, will you just mail those to us?
Well, typically what we've done with that is provided a notebook, because it would include all the TVOS and all of the other scores that we would have, and that's what we've been waiting on to get this done, was the release of that.
Okay. So you think by Tuesday, if everything goes well?
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Phillips?
Just a follow-up comment, and I've always appreciated in the past, Dr. Gilbert, having you as our director review the document with us, because there are some things that you can point out, some growth areas, and you know, just different things that
Okay.
that I think is helpful to us.
Okay. What I can do is we can set up appointments probably for you all to come in individually if you want to do that. We'll get a schedule on that and try to get that taken care of.
Thank you.
I think most of it on of course, basically all of Appendix C is based on test scores. And what I will give you is, particularly when it gets down to number 6, those are basically, they'll be pretty, I'll give you documentation, those will be numbers and yes or no, because that's how some of those come when it comes to talking about the system's annual growth standards. So we'll have a yes or no there and documentation of that. But I will get that notebook to you, because I know that's something we do every year.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Renier?
I think that I was reminded that I had brought this up before, the last time we went through this evaluation process. I'm not sure how it should be worded, but I almost feel that there needs to be one more column in here instead of this 1 through 4, maybe a 1 through 5. And I realize, even looking at it now, a 3 is consistently meets expectations, a 2 is usually meets expectations. To me, they're pretty comparable. Maybe we need something like sometimes meets expectations to round it out a little bit more, because more than likely it's going to be pretty clear cut, but I'm thinking that there may be some, it seems to me that I remember marking something before where I wish there had been one more column.
One of the things, and I don't know whether you want to go with this, but I did remember you saying that, and so I wrote down, with the administrator's rubric, which is the ones we use for the principals and also the teacher's rubric, you have 5, you have 1 is significantly below, 2 is below, 3 is at expectation, 4 is above expectation, and 5 is significantly above expectation.
I know that from, it was the same team rubric, or those scores that I use with my student teachers. And I don't know that we could rearrange and change all of these to match that, as opposed to what you have, exceeds expectations, consistently meets expectations, usually meets it. They're really so close together. I don't know. This is just up for discussion.
I understand what you're saying. If I remember correctly, and please, Dr. Gilbert and Mr. Campbell, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we started this process, we originally floated the idea of a 5-point scale, but I think the board decided that it wanted a 4-point scale. Now, we can change that if that's what the board wants to do. It would be a simple matter of adding another column, changing the wording, and then getting a new instrument back to you in time to complete, if that's the board's wishes.
Well, I'm open to whatever anyone else, has to say, but I just feel like, and I can't specifically say, but I just thought that there was something that needed an extra area.
I think it's a good idea.
Give us again, if you don't mind, or somebody.
What I'll do, and I agree with you, because I've tried to make this, granted, it's a lot heavier than what I look at with principals on scores. I mean, it just is. But I would like to have it as close to that as we can get it. So with your permission, I'll use the verbiage on those 5 rankings that is exactly what the teachers have and the principals have.
I think that would be a good idea, and I think that's a good faith, not estimate, a good faith
Gesture.
gesture for them, showing that you will be evaluated the same way, basically. So I like that idea. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
Mr. Campbell, I just want to make
Yes.
sure, let me repeat this to make sure that I understand. What you would like is 5 columns, 1 through 5, with the descriptors rated exactly as the teacher evaluations
The-
is rated.
And I can do that and get it to you, Randy.
Okay, well, we can do,
Okay.
you can, whichever
What do you
way.
think?
I can do
I
that.
actually had a different thought. So
Okay, hold up just a second.
I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. We've got this thought, now we've got another thought.
I mean, but I do, you further explained having apples to apples with the other administrators. You could just change number 2 and change that to sometimes, and that would just be it.
We could, but I like the idea of going back
Of
to
being
5-point.
Being exactly, that makes sense. But that was my
Because
initial thought was,
that's
use this,
how
but let's
the-
have the same thing
Right.
that we have
Right.
the other administrators. Yeah.
Well, and the administrators are evaluated that way, as are the teachers. So I think it's
Consistent.
consistent and maybe a little, I don't know. I like the idea better.
Ms. Barrett?
Nancy.
Well, I think you didn't.
Oh, no, I didn't have my
You
hand
didn't,
up.
I'm sorry. Ms. Phillips?
Mr. Bennett, is there a reason you suggested or you selected September 12th? Because if it's going to take a little more time, is there a reason you said,
Well, we just wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time to get everything together and ready for the report on the 23rd. But
Okay.
we can push that a little beyond that if that's necessary.
Okay. I was just wondering if it's going to take time to, get us the documents again and all that. You might want to change the date a little bit. It was just a thought.
If you, it's fine with us either way. So it's just a simple matter of looking at your schedule and determining when it would be the most effective time. If the 23rd doesn't work, then we'd, I guess, have to move it on into October, if I'm not mistaken. So if we want to look at the calendar and see where we are on that, I believe we could set a different date and still get here on the 23rd.
All right, let me ask you a question. You have those 5 rubrics in front of you. Could she not give us those 5 rubrics tonight, and all we've got to do is scratch out on this and write in what we're saying?
What I can do is, I'm going to go back to the office anyway tonight. So what I can do is correct this tonight, go ahead and send it to Randy, let him check it, and then get it out to you all.
Okay.
We'll put it in the mail tomorrow. Please do hang on to your self-addressed stamped envelopes. We don't like to waste those.
Okay. All right, and then we are still looking at trying to get it back to TSBA by September 12th? So that you can come back on the 23rd?
I could see that we could stretch it out another day or two to into the next week, the 15th or 16th. I think if we could get them back by the 16th, that would give us 1 week prior to the 23rd, and that would, I think, would that work for you?
Yeah, I'm just thinking also time to review Dr. Gilbert's information and meet with Dr. Gilbert, and when you start thinking about those things.
All right. So a September 16th deadline with us coming back the week later on the 23rd to present the results of the final report and making the change from a 4-point to a 5-point rating system.
All right.
All right.
Any other questions or discussions on the implement? I guess Kelly, do we need a motion for that? Okay. Then we will need a motion indicating that we are going to go from a 4-point to a 5-point, and TSBA is going to work that out and send it to us as board members. We then are asking to get it back to TSBA by the 16th,
Yes.
and then you will be back on the 23rd to present the findings.
I will not, but someone will.
Somebody will, right.
I'll make
okay.
that motion, but
Sir?
I'll make the motion.
All right, Mr. Barrett makes that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. King, any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett, thank you very much for being with us tonight. It's always good to have you with us and TSBA in our back pocket.
Well, thank you, Mr. Campbell. You might want to change that terminology.
Well, you know what I mean.
I do. And you all have a good week.
Thanks, sir.
Next, under action items, you have budget amendments. Gary?
Yes, thank you. Board members, in your packet was information about budget amendments that we need to make for a few different reasons. We have grown, the information that's on your sheet is already outdated because we're growing every day. We're at 433 additional regular ed students over last year when we ended the year. Now, it's regular education and special ed K-6 and special ed pre-K as well. The difference that you'll see when you look at what we budgeted for versus our number of students on the sheet that I handed at your place tonight is that, remember, we reduced 5 of the pre-K classrooms, so the number's 100 less than that, but we've grown this many in regular ed. Well, this requires additional revenues and additional expenditures. Obviously, if we have this many more students, we have to hire more teachers. So let me go through the revenue part, if I could, first, and in the sheet that I provided for you in your budget pack, and that is the budget amendment summary. We need to increase our budget revenues by $1,551,000. The July estimate of BEP, the Basic Education Program, provided us with an additional $132,000 over our original budget estimate. So that's good. That's money coming from the state. We also have increases in property tax, sales tax, wheel tax, business tax, and other miscellaneous revenues. They are, if you look at the sheet that has the budget breakdown, it shows you how much we've increased each one of those particular items as well. Then the last piece of that puzzle is we need to utilize additional fund balance dollars. We need another $1,063,000 of our fund balance to get the amount of revenue we need to cover the additional expenditures that I was going to go through next. Does anyone have any questions about the revenue piece before I get to the expenditure piece?
What would that give us in our fund balance at the present time about?
Okay, before we hit this $1 million, ending the year with $3,748,079. That's $3,748,079.
You said that's the end of last year?
Yes. Then we would apply or subtract from that the $1,063,104.
How much does that leave at the government with the, depending on what the government requires us to maintain in our fund balance?
The state requires us to have a 3% fund balance. That amount, based on our budget, is $1,734,690, which is what we have to have. So as you can see, we have a difference there. And the difference of what will be left in our fund balance to start with is $2,013,388. So we have that much to actually work with to take the million from, the million that's here. We have that much to work with.
Could you repeat that, $2,013,000?
Yes, $2,013,388.
Thank you.
That's what we have to work with, of the total of 3.7, because we have to leave 3%. Now, we can go below the 3% if we need to. If we have to hire, if all of a sudden we get hundreds more kids, we could still do that, but we have to go to the state to ask permission. And I don't see them ever saying no when you've got this much of an increase. But it's still our money, but we just have to tell the state, hey, we need to go into our fund balance to do this. Okay, the expenditures on this, and the reason is we've hired 22 additional teachers to meet the state and the MCS standards, pupil-teacher ratios. That's for the additional students, and we may still be hiring additional since we are growing every day. The instructional supplies and materials, of course, we had to add additional monies for that to cover the increase in the students and the additional teacher needs. We add some to the library allocation for the additional students. And those of you who attended the conference up in Gatlinburg on the legal conference, and they talked to you about the Affordable Care Act and the requirements of working over 30 hours, we needed to adjust all of our transportation bus assistants to full-time status because they're working over 30 hours. And that's the other piece when you look at the actual spreadsheet on the second page, and you can see how it's broken down.
Question, Ms. Ranier?
Maybe I was brain dead. I thought that was 37 and a half hours.
30 hours.
It was 30?
It's 30 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually.
And that's right now that we have to do that. It wasn't a wait
Yes,
next
we
year.
were under the impression we could wait for the look-back period to January,
Right.
but from the information that was brought back from the conference, we needed to do it now. So since it's a legal issue of our making sure we're in compliance with the Affordable Care Act, we needed to make that part of the overall package at this time. So the additional expenditures between the additional teachers, which is over $1 million, and the increase of the transportation line and the other different items comes to $1,551,104, and that's why our revenue, of course, matches our expenditures to come up with that amount. So we are asking you to review this, of course, and we will need approval to get this added to our budget. Now, we're doing it at this time because in the past, we always did budget amendments at the end of the year. The city council and the city management has asked us to please do these on a more frequent basis so that everyone knows what's going on and get the city council to approve them ahead of time as well. And we started that last year, and so this is the first really big one we've had to bring to anybody. I went back today and did a look back for the last 25 years' history of enrollment in the district. This year is the most the district has ever grown in any one year. We've grown over 5%, and we obviously need the teachers to do this.
Ms. Phillips?
I have several questions,
Okay.
please, Mr. Campbell. The first one is, we all know that we had grave concerns about dipping into our fund balance as much as we did during budget time. And I was wondering if you've had dialogue with Mr. Lyons regarding this huge inroad into what we have remaining of our fund balance.
Well, Dr. Gilbert and I met with Jim Crumley the other day and over about another issue, but we brought this up while we were there, and we have talked with Mr. Lyons previously before we knew the actual numbers would be. They are aware of our situation. They are aware that when it comes time, cash is going to be an issue as we move forward, but they're aware of it, and they said that they will help and assist us with that, since we still have money, it's just cash flow issues.
Mm-hmm. The next question is, and help me understand on the page prior where it says 413 regular education K through 6 students plus special ed and pre-K.
Yes.
So regular ed, just regular ed alone is 413, or does that include the special education and preschool?
That includes the special education and special ed pre-K as well.
Okay. Okay, so, and why do you think we had such huge growth that apparently we didn't plan for?
Actually, I tried to figure that out myself, so I went back and looked at the 25-year history, and every time we opened up a new school, we got additional students. And you can watch the economy, when the economy tanked in 2008, 2009, our numbers really sank and stayed flat. And with the economy picking up, I think it's really started to pick up again, the community's picking up, and the fact that we opened up a new school and drew students in that previously were attending other schools, private schools, county schools, we picked up some home schools, we picked up kids that we did not anticipate. The other issue is the area that is really surprising to me, since I'm one who put the numbers together, is that when we did all the rezoning, we opened up Reeves Rogers back into a K-6, and we moved to fill that school as much as we could. That school filled up. The big surprise is Pittard filled back up too. Mm-hmm. And it is right close to where it was last year when we ended up taking 300 students out of that school and sent them to Reeves Rogers. According to the principal there, they're moving into the apartments. There are people moving in from out of state, and it's basically because there's jobs here.
Mm-hmm. I had one last little question, and then I'll be done.
You still got it.
Okay. And as of course, we all know that the money follows the child. In looking at this, how much do we expect to follow each child to come in as revenue?
Okay, we receive approximately $4,500 per student from the state, and then we received our proportional share from county funds based on our size of district versus the county's district size. The issue that you have when you have growth is the year that you grow in, you don't receive any more money from the state until January. And even then you receive about half of what the growth pool is. This year, the state dropped the pool from 30 million pool for the whole state to 15 million. So it's kind of hurts us that we do so much and that pool is dropped in half. But we won't see any of that money until January, and we've obviously grown above the 2%, which is pretty much their benchmark level.
Right.
We've grown well above that, and the second part of it would come in May. It puts us in a real issue with cash at this time, but it is absolutely wonderful news as we move forward into the next year because the money is there, it's in the BEP formula, and then it's in our percentage with the county.
How much money do you expect to get in growth money totally?
Well, since the pool's dropped in half, there's no way to tell because it depends on what other districts did.
What would
One
you-
year we got $1.5 million. When I first came in, that was the year we grew like 350 students, and then other years we've gotten 0. So I really can't tell.
On the year we got 0, did we reach our growth?
No.
Well, then that's the reason we didn't. But since we reached growth, do you have a guesstimate, our 2%?
I'd hate to just total speculation because I don't know what other counties have done in their growth.
Okay, I'm just asking particularly because I'm trying to see how much we can offset if we have to go, this drastically into the remaining fund balance, which is a grave concern of mine.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Phillips. Other questions? Ms. Lanier?
I had already called Mr. Anderson and asked pretty much the questions, not called, but emailed and asked these questions also. We were so concerned about going into our fund balance before, but literally we have to have teachers for the children. There's really nothing we can do. It's a fact of nature. This has to be done. My other question that relates to this is with the transportation. We bought our buses to make sure that the buses were waiting at the schools, so on and so forth. With this many students, are we still able to do that, or are we going to come back in 3 months and say we need to buy buses again?
I have a transportation report. I can do it now, or I can wait till then to give you the answer on that. We don't expect to buy any more buses, if that's your major question.
Okay. That's my question dealing with this, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Barrett?
I just you mentioned the bus aides. What about substitute teachers? I know they mentioned that at the legislative conference too. Does this include that, or is that going to be something separate? Or
No, I believe Mr. Ringstaff was planning on making sure they didn't work over 30 hours a week.
okay, so there's a resolution to that. All right.
There was an article that came out about the county on their property tax, may have gotten information from the state late. We talked with the county today, Ms. Nolan, and our budget, I always try to do a little conservative on that because I don't want to get burnt out. We budgeted within $30,000 of the new estimate, so on a $10.5 million, $30,000, I'm pretty comfortable with that difference. It's not that great.
Other questions?
How can we get some more money? That's my question.
Grants. Grants is one
Not to
thing.
hit what we need to hit with them.
This is awfully tight.
It's very tight.
Well, I've got a question. Speaking of grants, we read earlier about the people who got grants. Is there a way we could get a list of people who applied for a grant and did not get it? And is there perhaps some way we could help these people?
Well, these particular grants are different grants than, these particular grants are, in fact, one of the grants came out just all of a sudden, and there it was. But as far as these particular grants, they're going to be school district grants, so they're not going to be individual teacher grants. Where the individual teacher grants come would be with the foundation grants and also the BEP grants.
I guess in one way, we consider ourselves lucky that we haven't faced this growth problem for a while. I think Mr. Marlin could attest to, I know I can, the growth in the county has been sometimes this much and even more, and it always creates a problem because you really don't know. And on the other hand, it's certainly a compliment to our school system that we've got students coming. If they've been in other schools, they're coming to our schools, and teachers are coming here as well. So that's part of what you face, I guess, with growth.
Well, I just have part of the growth. I was in one of the schools today for several hours representing the school board, and I talked to each class about where kids had gone to school before, because of the rezoning, moving around in the city. And one of the classes I spoke to, there were 6 new kids to that school. 2 had been in the city schools. 4 had come in from other counties and other states.
That's what we're hearing.
Yeah.
That's what we're hearing.
Sounds about right.
We had, when we first started looking at this, one reason we waited on hiring is because I thought we were seeing duplication of students. And then after talking to the principals and saying, okay, tell me the numbers actually in the seats, then that's what I started hearing, where they were coming in from other places.
So you need a motion then for us to tell you to be all right to take this money from fund balance and use it as we need to. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion, or do we have a motion? Excuse me. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Renier. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a problem that, I guess it's good and bad here, one way, whatever way you look at it. Okay. Let me get back up here to my agenda. Reports and information.
The first report information was a discussion of professional days, so I'm open for whatever questions or discussion the board would like to have.
All right, I asked Dr. Gilbert to put this on the agenda, and I'm going to respectfully ask the board to hold your questions until after she and I have the dialogue, so we can get everything straight and exact, and everybody knows where we're coming from. You want to explain about the two personal days and the professional day? Okay.
The board has, for years, had a professional day, and then a personal day, and then a day that could be used for either personal or professional. What has happened, and even when I was here before, the professional day was at that time even asked to use first, and then you could use another professional day if you chose, or if the principal chose. And then everything else would be TDL. What I have done is one professional day, and then if we're asking teachers to go to something after that professional day is taken, then I have been giving TDL for that. So that's the way that has worked. By state law, there has to be, I believe it's 2 personal days. Okay. But the professional day does not roll into sick leave or retirement, but the personal days do, correct? Okay.
Okay. So, the way I understand, every teacher has 2 personal days.
They can be, if they
Okay.
choose to do that,
All right.
which typically is what I've been encouraging.
All right. And then they have that one professional day, which is basically paid for by our budget. So even if we were to tell teachers and say, okay, we're going to take that professional day and you don't have to worry about it. Now, what that would do, and I think I would kind of recommend that because it's going to be the same thing. They don't have to worry about that professional day. They know they've got 2 personal days. Now, if they want to use both of them to go hiking or go fishing or whatever, that's what they can do. That professional day is a day that is allotted to them by the system to attend either an in-house meeting or some professional meeting, something that they have to do pertaining to their job. So if we were to tell them they had 2 personal days and we forgot that professional day, it would be the same thing if my wife and I have in our banking account, if I go to the store and spend $20, it's coming out of that account. If she goes to the store and spends $20, it's coming out of that account. So either way, it's coming out of the same pool of money, but you don't have to worry about that, quote, professional day. And I think that's what's getting a lot of them. I don't think it's as bad as what it has been from the conversations that I've had, but I just wanted them to make sure that they knew they had 2 personal days to use however they want to, and their personal days. And when they get ready to use one of them, they tell their administrator, I'm taking a personal day, and that's it. The administrator does not have to know where they're going or what they're going to do because it's their personal day, right?
Right.
I think that's what you and I talked about. Okay.
Right.
Ms. Smith?
So on the professional day, it could be a day that they are required to go to training. It's not a professional training that they might choose.
Not necessarily, yes, that's correct. And it never has been.
Okay.
But if they wanted to go to a conference, and I hate to go back in things in the years past, but almost every year, a majority of your physical education teachers want to go to this meeting that's in Franklin. Okay, now if there is not a professional day somewhere to be used, and if they want to use one of their 2 personal days for that, then that's fine.
Or if it is something that benefits the system, and typically what I will ask, if it's something that they want to go to, is how is this going to benefit, because that's important, then TDL could be offered. Now, question would be, in my mind, and how I would work that, is do we need all 12 PE teachers going, or do we need 1 PE teacher? And typically, I will go to the teachers, like the librarians. I'll go to them and say, all right, what are you going to need? What's going to be the benefit?
I don't know that all the PE teachers have to go necessarily. Ms. Ranier?
I think you just said that if they use their professional day, let's say they're going to a data training or something, and then they want to go to a PE conference, let's say, they're using their personal day, that shouldn't happen. Their
No, it
personal
would be
day is
TDL.
personal
That's-
day. It would be TDL.
Right, and
Are they guaranteed that whatever they would ask for would be TDL?
Here would be the exception, and here's what happened last year, and I think I explained this to you all before, but when I go on there and I see that, I had seen some that were personal, and I said, this needs to be TDL, please change it to TDL. The only exception that I would think, and I'm just trying to think of what exceptions would be if there were a conference that would not necessarily benefit the district, then that might be a case where I would say, okay, you need to use your personal day to do this if you want to do it. But I can't foresee that, and I've not seen that since I've been here.
Okay, because I would think that
Because typically,
would not be fair.
Right, and what typically happens though is that the principal is the first stopgap with that, and so they determine, and a lot of times they'll say, I'm going to send this teacher to so and so, and then here's why. Okay, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
But if they come to me and say, I don't see any point in the teacher going to this conference, and I really need this teacher in their school, then I'm going to expect them to have that conversation with the teacher before it ever reaches me.
Last year when we had this discussion, or last spring when we had this discussion, is it, am I?
Yeah, you are.
I'm sorry. Last year when we had this discussion, I think another part of the concern of some of the teachers has been the fact that those 2 personal days can roll over to sick leave.
That's right.
They are still of the impression that there are people who don't have to use personal or professional days, and, well, that wouldn't apply. So that's a misnomer. If they're using a professional day, that doesn't roll over
That's right.
anyway. So they need to know that. So teachers, be aware, professional day does not roll over. The other part of that was some people in some positions, for instance, for lack of me not knowing anything else, let's say a speech pathologist, because, I was in the classroom year after year, and when they went to a meeting, speech classes were canceled. I know that you said that's not happening anymore.
I said they are expected to take a professional day regardless.
Okay. So they should take their professional
That's exactly
day.
correct.
So that, everybody needs to know that.
Right.
Because I think that was another part of the issue, that they felt some people don't have to use those days.
I even have principals that will sign out for professional days, and they certainly don't have to have a substitute.
Right.
But I expect them to sign out.
Okay.
And part of that has to do with just accountability and where are you.
Right. Another question
And
that
it
I
also
have-
has to do with, I'm sorry, Mr. Ranier, but it also has to do, if there were something that were to happen in the district, then that person, is not AWOL, but that person is actually signed out. So it's as much for protection of the district as anything else.
Okay. I think my mind just went blank. Somebody else asked a question. Go
Just
ahead.
a simple question for my understanding, to make sure I got this. So at the beginning of the school year, a teacher has 2 personal days and 1 professional. If they do not take the professional day, it's lost. It's use it or lose it. If they do not take the personal days, they get to stockpile these up for the next year and the next.
Goes
So-
to-
Goes into sick leave.
Goes to sick leave, but
But they do accrue, personal days do accrue, professional days do not. Okay.
okay, Ms. Phillips.
I want to echo a lot of what Mrs. Rainier is saying, and that, I've heard from several people and have information sent to me from several people across the system. So this is not just one school or one organization or one group of people. There is, in my opinion, a lot of misunderstanding about what's going on. And in fact, I was going to ask you to share with the folks at home what TDL.
Okay. It's temporary duty leave.
Okay.
It would be, for example, if we have a teacher that has come to, and this I'll give you an example that could have already happened, as a matter of fact. We had a day where we had training for NWEA, which is an assessment. And we had another training, and we had principals, assistant principals, and 1 teacher. We had another training that was a data team training, so we had principals, assistant principals, 1 teacher, and team leaders. So it's possible that you would have had the same teacher coming for those 2 days. We would have said, please take your professional day on this one, and the other one would have been TDL, which is temporary duty leave. It's leave for which the teachers still get paid, because we are saying it's important enough for you to be at this training that we need to provide a substitute for you.
Well, what I was just going to continue, thank you, Dr. Gilbert, is that there's just a lot of confusion. It's a complex issue. It is complex. And there are concerns that is not being, consistently handled, across the system, and some people get to have substitutes, others don't. There's a lot of confusion and misinformation, I think, and I think it is a challenging issue. I personally wondered if we would benefit from forming a little committee with a board member and perhaps a teacher representative or 2 and someone from administration to discuss it and make sure we are clear on the issues and perhaps someone to study that and get it clear, because we keep having this dialogue. We had it in the spring. We're having it now. We're hearing it. So it is an important issue to our staff. So I just thought possibly, that might be helpful. One other thing is, I was questioning whether the professional days, my information I have and what I remember is that the professional day were days that were negotiated by the union back when we had a teachers union. Is that correct?
The 3 days were, so that you had personal, you had professional, and you had personal or professional.
Now, the concerns I hear from some of the teachers is that the professional days at that time, they were allowed to select individually on their 1 professional day what training they would have, and they feel like that right has been removed from them, and that is, that I thought I remembered it that way too, Dr. Gilbert.
At the time, and I was here, I know from I was here from 98 to 2004 and approved all professional days and all personal days during that time. At that time, it was still use your professional day first and then TDL. Now, at that time, we did not give very many TDLs at all, because what trainings were offered would have been those kind of trainings that you would have had. For example, you had ASCD that had trainings. You had the State Department that had trainings. At that time, those trainings were much more they were much more choice trainings. They would be, you did not have the accountability you have now. Now our trainings are directly linked to the accountability. So when we're looking at data team trainings, we're talking about test scores, we're talking about instruction, we're talking about strategies that improve instruction. When we talk about NWEA, we're talking about being required by the state to have a screening instrument, and the NWEA is the one we're using, so we do want our teachers trained. since we have had the trainings that we've had in the summer, we have been required to come back. So as far as optional trainings, first, there aren't many offered anymore at all. You'll have the librarians, you'll have the physical education teachers, you'll have the music teachers maybe, although the organization that used to do that is not nearly as strong as it used to be. So one thing is you just don't have those. The other thing is that if you do have the optional trainings, now they're going to be usually produced by somebody like a national organization that would come in, and so the costs are pretty exorbitant for what you get for that day. So what we've tried to do and what other districts have tried to do is really you're training from within. And so when we bring somebody in now, it's pretty unusual. So those options that teachers used to have, I'm not aware that they're there anymore, and I don't see other school districts doing that too. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, since we are doing the trainings and since the professional day has been there and has been there forever, we do ask teachers, and we did at that time ask teachers to attend and use your professional day to do this because we knew we still had the 2 other days left. So there has been a difference, but the difference, I think, is as much as anything, is the kind of training that's offered now. It's just totally different than it was even when I was here before, 98 to 2004.
See, that makes perfect sense to me, but I just think that we could all benefit from having that kind of dialogue for the small committee, getting...
I'm fine with doing that, but what I am going to do is I will again make it clear with principals about this, and the other thing I will do is go to faculty meetings and talk with teachers. I'd just rather go straight to them than I had anything else, and I think that's important.
Well, I just thought, the reason I mentioned a committee with the board, because I know I've heard from people. I'm guessing my fellow board members have heard from people too. So I think there is, I think it's an issue that does have a lot of, it needs some dialogue, just needs some dialogue. And, you're good at that.
Ms. Smith?
Okay, I'm kind of slow catching on to this. I'm sorry. Because I know that my kids' teachers have been out for trainings more than 4 times.
That's right, probably. Some of them have.
During the school year. So that's 3 days that I'm looking at versus, I would say 5 days at least they've been out. So what do you call those days? Those
They're
other days?
TDLs. Those would be temporary duty leave days.
So that doesn't matter.
After they take their first
have
professional day.
multiple TDLs.
That's right.
And TDL would never roll over. That would just be.
No.
Okay, so the first time they miss for some data training or something is professional day.
Right.
Then it's TDL.
That's right.
So then, if they haven't had a doctor's appointment or whatever to leave, they still have 2
Right.
personal
And those
days.
doctor appointments can go with sick days because you're accruing a sick day a month.
Okay, so the 2 personal days to go get the massage is
Right.
what,
Yeah.
those are still there.
That's right.
Okay.
I think where some people are getting, I guess, excited or don't understand, is the fact that I think they used to call one of those personal days personal/professional.
Yes.
But now, what Dr. Gilbert has said tonight is every teacher gets 2 days of personal leave a year, period. They have 1 professional day. Once they use that day, every day thereafter that's going to be for some required training by the system will be a TDL day. Now, if they want to go somewhere on their own and it's not approved as a TDL day, and some of those may be approved if they're applied for, then they have to use one of their personal days. So teachers, you got 2 personal days, use them the way you want to.
I don't think it's fair to ask, if you're going to ask a teacher to go to training that we're asking them to go to, then it needs to be TDL.
I agree. We'll use those 2 days to go fishing or whatever. Ms. Renier?
Well, I agree with that totally. I think way back when this was negotiated to have these 3 days, it may have even been before you came, because I hate to say how far back this was. You know, I think the thought was, let's be able to go, if your area of maybe not necessarily expertise, but pleasure, you love language arts, can I go learn some more about language arts? And I can't remember the names of all of those companies, but I went several times, and when you were here, you made me go back and teach it to a whole group of people at Mitchell Nielsen. But you get to go and do the things that you find an interest in, and maybe that's what some of this is, that they're feeling that they may not be able to go, as Mr. Campbell said, to the ones that they would really prefer to go to. My other thing that I was going to say before, last year or the spring we talked about, some people had said they were out for training 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that we have enough people trained that doesn't happen anymore, because that's a week and a half of
That's right.
a substitute in a classroom where those teachers need to be in front of those babies.
That's right.
Thank you.
Well, with new adoptions and things that we had last year, we had teachers that were out a lot. But that's fine, they were there. They were out for the training. Okay. All right, next item.
Leah Barch, I'd like for her to give, because we did start last year, Work with Gifted, and I thought it would be a good time for us to discuss that tonight. So I've asked her to come and talk with you about Gifted. Leah has done a tremendous amount of work, has partnered with the Jennings and Rebecca Jones Foundation, and really producing a cadre of teachers, I think, that are pretty extraordinary. We have extraordinary teachers anyway, but are extraordinary as far as knowing what to do with gifted students. And I think because of that, it's really helping all of us. So, Leah?
First of all, I want to thank you for supporting the learning of all students in the district. I think that the parents of the children who are dancing around the room because the math is challenging, they would thank you. The teachers who send an email and are in love with teaching again because of strategies that they've learned, emails, hey, my kid said this, my kids are loving learning, they would thank you. The little child, though, that might not thank you, funny story, I was working with him and he was crying. And I'm like, it's hard, I know it's hard, but we're going to work through it, I'm going to support you, it's rigorous. He said, no, I'm missing my lunch. So I got to eat lunch with him that day, but there's a lot of things going on across the district, a lot of great things. Like Dr. Gilbert said, raising awareness has been huge. A lot of students are receiving service or rigor and complexity that they might not have been getting before that. And part of that is because teachers now are becoming more familiar with characteristics and needs of gifted learners. We're building capacity through professional development, ironically, that we just finished talking about that, but we've offered professional development this summer. Teachers gave their own time during their summer. It's a very fascinating time being in a room with 30 to 40 teachers who want to be there on their own time to learn about Gifted. We had some great discussions. We're also looking to offer a monthly professional development opportunity for teachers. It could be teachers who have gifted students in their classroom. It could be teachers who teach the gifted or high intervention group through RTI. It could be resource teachers. It could be any teacher who wants to learn more about gifted learners and high achievers. We've also been very fortunate to have a strong relationship with Vanderbilt, and partly because of the Jones Foundation. The Jones Foundation has been instrumental in helping us build capacity. I think it's neat when you look at what they've been able to provide for us through their grant. 25 teachers over the last 2 years went to the Gifted Institute at Vanderbilt, a 2-week program that when they complete the course, they have employment status in the state of Tennessee to teach gifted students. So we have 25 teachers in our system now through the Jones Foundation. The Jones Foundation also sent 13 teachers to other various professional development opportunities at Vanderbilt. A lot of those were like on curriculum, how to look at curriculum or design curriculum or higher order thinking. And 11 teachers went to the National Association for Gifted Convention last year. A lot of things such as STEAM, the STEM with adding the arts to it, came from that professional development, and now it's really taking way in our system. Speaking of NAGC, That's National Association for Gifted Convention. We have several teachers from our system that will be traveling there to present this year in November. We have a couple of our teachers in the system that will be presenting at the Tennessee Association Conference for Gifted in October. Let's see. And I think that it's really cool, too, when you look at two phrases. If I had to look back at all of the little victories that we've had and the changes that are occurring, to sum it up, there are two phrases that seem to be sticking with what we're doing. One phrase is gifted all day, every day. Because of our emphasis on general education teachers, we are looking at what can we do for gifted learners or high-achieving learners all day long. And that also helps our RTI squared, because those teachers that are getting training to help in the general education classroom for those classes with gifted learners, they're also doing the top intervention group. So we're getting strategies in multiple places, and anyone who is achieving at that level benefits from the RTI squared model. Another phrase is, this is good for all learners. The number of times that teachers during our summer training said, this benefits every one of my students. It's awesome for them to make that connection. And one of the reasons that's happening is that the strategies that we know to be good for gifted learners take thinking to a deeper level. And all of our students, all of our children in Murfreesboro City Schools, all of the children need to be able to think at a deeper level critically and creatively. And so one quote that kind of summarizes all of that too is by Renzulli. He said, a rising tide raises all ships. And so we want to teach to the top and support everyone to come up and provide the support that they need as we reach high. So any questions? Or
Ms. Smith?
Well, I'm really thrilled that we have this position with Ms. Barsh, and I know there's only one of her, and I can imagine that someday when we're not dipping into our fund balance, I think it would be nice to have some other people to work with Ms. Barsh. But how many children are actually identified as gifted in the system?
110 to 130. We're still, with the growth, we're still learning about our new students. So we're still letting
right,
other things.
and I know that that's not really been encouraged at Discovery School because the population is just kind of assumed to be the high-achieving population. But what you're working with also is the rest of the schools, which is certainly there are many high-achieving and gifted students that are across the school system. And so I think that's wonderful that you're working with all those teachers. We talked, Ms. Barsh and I talked a little bit before the meeting tonight, and what I would like to see in the future is, and she said that she's working on this, is on our website for parents to see, something like, say you think your child is gifted, what would the steps be to go ahead and get them identified, and it really explain what a gifted child might look like and how they can get help throughout our school system. And I hope that will come to fruition in maybe this fall.
Ms. Phillips?
That's a great idea, Ms. Smith. I love that idea. Thank you so much, Ms. Barch, for all this work you're doing. And I just wanted to share with the public that the 130 students, I personally don't think really reflects the real population in Murfreesboro City Schools, because most of our students at the Discovery School are not identified because they're being taught the same as if they were in the gifted program. Is not true? Isn't that true, Ms. Barch?
Discovery School, by nature of design of a magnet school, operates at a faster pace and kind of compacted curriculum. So they're moving faster through the curriculum. And we have an assistant principal here from Discovery School. Shall we have her speak? I'm kidding you.
That was a nice.
So yes. You know what? I got this. I got it. Yes, it is. It is designed to meet their needs at a faster pace and at deeper levels. But like we said over here, we
I think our ultimate goal in the city would be if at the end of a certain time period where we're still continuing and striving to do what is good for kids, but we could look back and say, you know what? It doesn't matter where you go to school. Would you look at how we're meeting their needs? Because we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that every student, every child, regardless of their needs, has what they need to reach their potential. And yes, we are still finding those kids because we are still learning what they look like.
I think you're right. I was on the board when we created the Discovery School, and that was our intent. Was at that time we stopped our pull-out program at that time, and we brought stopped most of that pull-out program, and we brought the kids together. Now I am still upset that the state called Murfreesboro as over-identifying gifted children and did not call Rutherford County on it, and that's why so many of our kids that are in the Discovery School really are gifted, but are not identified about that. However, the minute they enter the county school, they are identified as gifted.
Well, we're working with that too.
And, and that's really not fair to our kids. And I mean, because we're missing out on some funding and other things, it's really not fair to our kids. But it is good that as soon as they enter the middle school system with the county, they are identified as gifted. And another thing I want to I really loved what you said was gifted all day, every day, because that pull out, that's great for 2 hours, but that doesn't that doesn't help and affect and engage the children the rest of the day. So I really love that you're working with that, and all the sentiment that you expressed about reaching all our kids at wherever we meet them. So thank you, Ms. Barge.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Kim Frank with the School Climate. You may have heard about the Oveus celebration that we had, and so we thought it would be appropriate for this time of year also for you to have a report on that. So this is our coordinator of behavioral support, who has not been feeling good at all, but she's here.
I've already got to tell you that my third grader came home doing a cheer.
Awesome.
Bullying cheer. So that was
I hope it's a bullying prevention cheer.
Yes. It was bullying prevention. Yes.
Yeah, we've had to really work on
It's not pro-bullying.
This is not a bullying
Okay.
initiative, it's a bullying prevention initiative. Good evening. Dr. Gilbert asked me to not only talk about bullying and our bullying prevention, but just to talk a little bit about what we've done to address school climate across all of our 11, now 12 schools, and that's what I'm going to really address. And I like pictures, I like visuals, they keep me organized, so I've got a few, but not a lot, because I know it's getting late. But I want to tell you about 3 things that we've done that really have impacted the school climate across all of our schools. And the first one is called CI3T. That stands for Comprehensive Integrated 3-Tier. It's a framework. We partnered with the Department of Education, the Tennessee Department of Education, through our colleagues at MTSU to implement this starting last year. Last year was the planning phase for CI3T. And what each school did was come together with a CI3T committee, and they worked together with our partners at MTSU. And at the end of the year, what they had developed was a framework of how they were going to use a multi-tiered, a 3-tiered approach to not only address academics, like we've done under the guidance of Dr. Brooks and Mrs. Hawkins, our 3-tier model for academics, but this also takes behavior and puts it in a 3-tier model, and social emotional learning and puts it in a 3-tier model. And our schools worked individually to develop their plan for how to address behavior in their building and how to address social emotional learning. So it's not something that we forced down. They came up with what their tier one is universal. What are they going to do to teach behavior to all children in their building? Not just assume that they come to school knowing how to behave, but when they get there, how are we going to teach them? And then for those children who might struggle behaviorally, what are we going to do to, like tier 2 would be, what are we going to do for small groups? What are we going to do for individuals? Okay? So each school kind of came up with their own plan. And what that did, as far as building climate,
it gives them a chance for teachers and administrators to come together and decide what is important to us. What can we all agree on? Our behaviors that we want to see in our building. And when everyone is doing the same thing within a building, and there's not that she's not doing it, he's not doing it, I'm doing all of it, that really hurts school climate. And what this did was all schools had to have buy-in. We had to have 80% buy-in for schools to do this. They had to go back to their faculties and get 80% buy-in. And so that has really impacted our school climate. This year, they're implementing the plan that they developed. And I can tell you, like at Irma Siegel Elementary, their plan was that every teacher was responsible for teaching routines, like going through the lunch line, departure at the end of the day, arrival, going through the library. And so they actually had to check off every time they taught it to their students. And there was an expectation that every teacher in the building would teach their class, would practice those routines X number of times. So all across the building on those first couple of days, all the teachers were focused on helping children learn those routines. That way, if there's a child who struggles with that behavior, the child can't say, I didn't know, because we know that we had very clearly taught them. Okay? So that's one example with our comprehensive integrated three-tier model. And research also supports the use of that for improving. The second thing that we did last year, and towards the end of the year, was we had all of our schools trained in the Oveus Bullying Prevention Program. And Oveus, we chose Oveus because it has the best body of research for bullying prevention. All of the other bullying prevention programs are kind of spin-offs of Oveus and incorporate a lot of the same principles, but Oveus is the one that the research really supports. We trained committees from each building. The committees went back, and at the very beginning of the school year, in those few days that we had for professional development, they trained all staff members in the Oveus bullying prevention. That means that everyone in the building knows what the rules are. Every adult in the building knows how to intervene should they see bullying occur. We invited our transportation staff, and each transportation staff person joined in a school and received the same training that the teachers did. And that was a great event. I think it was great for the teachers and administrators to welcome the bus operators and their colleagues into the schools, and it was great for our transportation staff to just feel like they were part of a bigger organization. So everybody's been trained. Last week, we had our bullying kickoff. That was where Ms. Smith's child, I'm sure, learned the cheer. And here are just some photographs of different activities that occurred last week during the Oveus bullying kickoff. This actually came from Hobgood. They incorporated art into this event. Each child decorated a hand, and you can see that then they created this poster, everyone has a hand in making Hobgood bully-free. Another example is at Northfield. They incorporated writing into this activity, and on each one of those stones, and they made this consistent with their new theme, the Knights, each child wrote about bullying, and then they used all those stones to construct this castle that will stay in their hall. So you can see that we've worked really hard to address the social emotional part of bullying, but also to make it part of our regular curriculum, our academic curriculum. We also had great coverage thanks to the hard work of Ms. Trail. And Mr. Wilkerson at Cason Lane was interviewed by Channel 5 about the bullying initiative, and you'll see that on Channel 5 in the next week or so. Here is a picture, a couple of pictures. One of the parts of the Oveus bullying program is a weekly class meeting. This is Mr. Knitter's 6th grade class. They started class meetings officially today. And this is an opportunity to make sure that we are teaching the children. We've worked really hard on teaching the adults, and class meetings are a great way for us to teach the children not only about bullying rules and our expectations, but one of the things that can happen is they can learn problem-solving skills. They can also, we really focus on teaching empathy, because we know that when children understand one another better, they're less likely to bully one another, and so that's one of the things that takes place during class meetings. The research on Oveus shows that not only does it impact bullying, that we see a decrease in the bullying between children, but it has been demonstrated to show a real increase in positive school climate. And that happens because it's a system change program where you look at the school level, you look at the class level, there's a plan for the individual level, and we involve the community. And I think our schools are beginning to do a really good job involving the community in their efforts. So that's another way that we've addressed the school climate. And then the final way that we're helping support school climate is each of our schools now has a behavior support team. And what that is it's a very small group of people. It's an administrator, a school counselor. We invite the school psychologist to join us, school social work to join. I attend those. And if there's a child who is really starting to struggle, we can meet together and problem solve. We've got everybody at the table. If there's something that we need some help from home, we've got social work there that can help. If we think that maybe the child is acting out as a way to cover maybe an academic skill deficit, we've got our school psychologist there, and we can start talking about a referral for special education. But before children's behavior escalates to a point where we need a lot of help, in those behavior support teams, we're able to really pull a lot of knowledge representing a lot of different disciplines and go ahead and address it early before that behavior starts to be well established. And what we've shown are these are our trends just over the last couple of years. And what you'll see, the blue line was suspensions from 2011 and 12 through last year. And you can see that there's been a really significant decrease in the number of suspensions over that 2-year time period. When we had administrators in on one of the early leadership meetings, we asked them, what they felt had contributed to that improvement. They felt like the behavior support team meetings had really helped with that. And they also thought that some of the professional development that we had provided them, we've really, really talked to them about when children struggle behaviorally, it can give us some really good information about the things that child doesn't know about social rules and responsibilities. And a consequence can often be that we very, very intentionally teach those social expectations. And so I think not always thinking that we can only suspend, but that we can teach has really, really made an impact on that. You can see that the overall behavior incidents are down, and bullying is down. I expect that this year our bullying numbers are going to go way up because we've really have a lot more awareness of bullying than we've had. So we're going to be, if that happens, we're not going to overreact. We're going to stay calm and stay focused, because we know that if we stick with this, that it'll make a difference not only for bullying, but just in the school climate. Because what we've been able to accomplish with these 3 initiatives is I think our schools feel supported. I think that we've created a lot of dialogue between the professionals in the building about what's important to them. They feel ownership over their CI3T plan, because that was their plan. No two plans in our district look alike. And I feel like they now feel like everybody is on the same page. And we know in our schools that started implementing it last year and didn't wait, we saw immediate improvement in behavior. So, and as that happens, we know school climate improves. So,
thank you, ma'am, very
Yes, sir.
much. Good
Thank you.
report. Good report. Construction update?
Okay, in your packet is the construction update. It's the end of the construction season pretty much for us from what we had started last year. Overall Creek, and thank everyone for being there for the ribbon cutting on Sunday. There's the kitchen is still not done. It'll be another few weeks before that's done. And the A-wing second floor was opened up the other day for the first time. There's 2 classrooms that have 2 pieces of furniture that need to be taken care of. But other than that, the punch list items are now going through, and so we're real excited to be in that absolutely gorgeous school. It's done real well in attracting students to that new facility. Ms. Rainier?
Ms. Renier?
Did they, I guess it's Biskin, I don't know how that works. If the job was not completed by less than such a date, don't they have to pay us?
They were, because of the weather we had this winter, they ended up having 30 additional days that they could take to finish the project, and so we're not over that time yet.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
they pushed 30 days ahead to get us in there. Originally, we built in 30 days, and we ended up having 60. We were supposed to get to school the first week of July, but we
Right.
didn't get it until the day before we opened up, basically. But they haven't gone into that window yet.
Mr., help me.
King.
Mr. King and I were there that day, so we know. Yeah, it was a busy time,
Yes, ma'am.
busy time.
Ms. Phillips?
Have all the classrooms gotten everything they need, the music instruments and all that stuff? Are they up and going?
We allocated the funds for it, and I don't know if they've received the instruments as yet. All of the technology stuff is in the classrooms and working. The phone systems are all working. The intercoms are working. The new activity boards are there working. So all those things, as we know. I'm sorry, I don't know if they've received the instruments yet. The library is now fully stocked, so we're good there.
Ms. Smith?
Did I hear that there's some air conditioning difficulties through the teacher grapevine?
Well, they have to balance out. Anytime you have a new building, you have to balance out the air conditioning. You have the same issues at Pittard and at Scales. It just takes time to balance them out. It's geothermal. It's done in different sections of the building. Like when you were there, the gymnasium was the coldest facility in the building. Other areas were warmer. Well, when they get it balanced, and we have a company that comes and makes sure that that is done correctly before they get where they can leave the building as it is. So I'm sure there is hot spots in certain spots. I'm sure there are some.
It was warm.
It was.
It was uncomfortably warm.
It wasn't real cool outside.
No.
It was toasty.
All right. Go ahead, Ms. Sanders.
Okay, the exterior doors at M&E and M&P, because we were so backed up this summer at all the additional work, they just haven't gotten to finish those. And so those have been done by our staff. Discovery School, we had talked with Parks and Rec, and they're going to resurface the tennis courts there. There's 3 tennis courts. They are handling the bids on that, and they're handling the project on it, and they should have it done by the end of September.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Another question from me. What about the tennis courts at the other schools?
Case and Lane's tennis courts have been resurfaced, and Parks and Rec are also doing Seagulls. The other ones, some are in
What
such
about
bad
at
shape.
Reeves Rogers? That was horrible.
Reeves Rogers in such bad shape. To do that one, you have to pretty much tear it up and start over again. So we're
is
trying
somebody
to,
going to do that because it's dangerous?
Yeah, well, we have it closed off now. We have to do something with it. It's whether we need a tennis court or some other type of hard play surface or what. We just haven't dug into that yet. They didn't think they should, based on the funds they have, it would be more than just a resurfacing.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the tennis courts, I'd be interested in how much use those tennis courts got beforehand, because we have to think of our schools as community property, and if that would serve the community and not just the school, then we need to think about whether that gives more credence to repairing it as opposed to destroying it. So.
Right. We don't want to destroy it. We may not just make it back into a tennis type playing surface, because that's part of the issue. The other thing is the community can use it on weekends, but during the school day, all the way up until 6 o'clock, when we have ESP, we really don't want outsiders on our property.
Right.
So there is an area, they'd have to be away from that area, but if you look at the one at Reeves Rogers, it's right in the middle of the playground area. So that one's a concern there, other than the fact that the conditions of it are not good. And the city's looking at the different surfaces that they have around, and so that's why they've done, the ones that get the most use and always has is Siegel and Kaysen, and Bellwood has been just sitting there, not really being utilized, and they think that would be a great spot to have the tennis courts redone.
Thank you.
There are very few tennis courts in the whole city that are not at Old Fort. So there is a need. And the ones I've been sitting in the pickup line looking at the courts, and the ones at Discovery School, they just need a light resurfacing. I mean, they're not, I mean, they need to be resurfaced, but I don't think it's going to cost a fortune for that to be done. But there are some things at Discovery which I think that you may have in your construction projects, but I keep hearing about the intercom system. Can you tell us a little bit what's going on with that?
On the intercom, it wasn't in construction, it was in like a work order thing. Intercom, we have to run a wire, which is called a home run. We have to run it from the intercom itself out to the area. There's certain classrooms in a certain section that don't work. The thought was it used to work, and the thought is when they went and rewired the school for internet and everything, somebody knocked the wire down or cut it, so they have to run another wire just because it would be hard to trace it. They're going to run another wire to it. Overall, if we get the funds from the E-rate, remember we put the $250,000 in. If we get E-rate, our full intention is to make every school VoIP, and so everyone can connect to every other school. And that is our goal. We have to see if we get those funds or not. But they're working on that particular issue.
Great. It seems like it's a safety issue that they cannot communicate that way, but I'm sure you're on it.
We are. We have service people working on it. All the other projects that we've had that you've been going through, they're all completed now. We've finished all those up. Maintenance department, major project that they're working on, they finished up also the Hobgood roof replacement that we had as an additional roof than the original ones that we had done. So those were the major construction things, and as you know, maintenance was extremely busy moving people around and doing painting and all kinds of other issues. So that was the end of the construction.
Thank you,
report.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Personnel report.
I have a transportation report. Transportation will be the next one.
I don't know. Mine goes. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, in the transportation department, we have currently 3,760 requests for people to ride the buses. That is a 7.4% increase over last year. 260 additional students want to ride the school bus. Fortunately, the new law that allowed buses to stay in service a little longer allowed us to save 3 buses that were supposed to retire this year. And then one that we had retired, but it had such good mileage on it, we didn't get rid of it. We kept it. We were able to put that one back in service. So we saved 4 buses. We did get one, as you had in your capital outlay. So we have five buses that we were able to bring into the stock. We are having issues with the length of time of the bus routes. And the afternoons, the earliest start times are getting done. Some are getting to school great. Some are taking too much time to get to their second school. We are reestablishing the routes and figuring out the shortest distance. If they finish up at Overall Creek, it doesn't make any sense that they would end up going for their next run over at John Pittard. So we're working on the logistics of all that. The other issue is we have had some drivers that can no longer drive for us through injury or some other means, and it takes the state 4 weeks to test somebody. So even though we had people line up, it takes them 4 weeks. So it takes us that long when we lose a driver to get another one. Now, we train them constantly. We get them ready to go take the test, but you have to schedule it, and it takes 4 weeks to get them. So our first one to be tested will be September 8th. To have our next driver approved. Right now, we're using office staff to drive the buses, who are certified drivers. We did that. We keep two back in the office for emergencies, and been many days we've used those. Other ones where we've doubled up. We had to add some buses to some schools that honestly we did not expect Pittard to be where it's at. So we scheduled 6 buses, and we're going to have to go back up to 7 or 8 to cover it. So we have to redo the routes for all that. So that was a big surprise to us. We thought it would be taking a lot off by going to Reeves Rogers, and it just didn't take as many. As you know, they just refilled again. So we are having timing issues on getting them home. The state allows an hour and a half travel time one way. We're okay on that, but the district is used to a 30-minute window. to 45 minutes. So we're having kind of create our own monster by getting students home in between 15 and 30, and now we're pushing that hour, hour and a half. So we're having some issues with that. We are redoing all the routes.
Again, growth brings on problems.
It has.
Tremendous. Ms. Phillips?
What are the kids doing? We had gotten rid of those long waits in the gym for the buses, so now.
The schools are having to stay with the students until the buses can get to the second school.
So I guess when my children were on the bus, that what was really hard is they would have to sit in the gym and be still and be relatively quiet for an hour. And this is after a long school day when they're tired and they're hungry and they are ready to get home. So I'm wondering what we are doing to make it easier for these kids.
Well, we're trying to get as many drivers as we can get trained because we have the buses now to put drivers in, but we have to wait for the state's inspections, for them to test the drivers to pass their test. We are looking at rerouting some buses. When we got started would have 15 to 20 kids on them. Other buses will be at capacity, so we're looking to level out the loads on them. It just takes time to work through all of these 30 routes to make it happen. And the schools are being extremely patient with us on going through this process. And unfortunately, there's some time constraints put on us from the state as far as getting it done, and from making sure that we get the children home in a reasonable time.
I guess maybe my question would have been better directed towards Dr. Gilbert then. I'm sure you're going to be looking at that, Dr. Gilbert, and making sure the kids aren't forced to just...
Well, I've not heard anything from the schools on that yet. It may be because they know we're working through it. The other thing that this district has always done is, I think the state law is 1.5 miles, right?
Yeah.
And so we have always, though, the board has always made it a priority that we take a look at where the children are coming from. And so we have, obviously, a lot of children that we are transporting that are much closer than that 1.5 miles. I have not heard any complaints from the principals on, I think they realize that we're working through it. They understand, I know, as you know, Mr. Anderson stayed at the bus room at the shop for about a week and a half working through it. So I think it's a matter, just like with everything else, I think everybody realizes we have students we didn't know we were going to have. And so we've got buses that we didn't know we were going to have to use in routes. So I can check into that, but I just haven't heard anything from them.
Right.
And normally if there's something that's really bothering them, that there's something that needs to be fixed, that they think that we're not responding fast enough, then I'll hear about it.
That's one of those things, though, that I don't think makes it to administration, because the kids are sitting there and they go home and tell their parents, and then the parents call the school board members. I'm not sure it makes it to administration. That's it. But this is a new problem, so because we had worked on it so much before, and unfortunately, but like Mr. Campbell says, with growth comes issues. What is the test that these drivers have to take?
They have to take their CDL test for certified driver's license, and they have to have it approved for student and passengers. They have to get a P&S endorsement. And that is the one, typically drivers come to us either with no CDL, or we teach them to get a CDL, and then they have to go take that passenger and student endorsement.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Renier?
I think when you started this discussion and you said in some situations we're close to the hour and a half, I was thinking that meant children were on a bus that long. How many schools, or are they all affected by having children now waiting for a bus? Is it pretty much across the system?
No, it's pretty much. Pittard is the one, because we have to add buses there, and Discovery School is the other one that we have issues getting kids home quick.
Who does Pittard share buses with? What other school?
They come from different
Mitchell
places,
Nielsen?
but
Oh.
what we're doing is rerouting so that
Right.
Siegel and Northfield buses will go to Pittard. Right now, there's some coming from across town, and that's why we're redoing all that.
Okay. And do you know, like, time-wise, how long they're actually waiting right now? Is it a horrendous amount of time?
Some wait up to 30 minutes.
Okay. But we're hoping, moms and dads, about 4 weeks we'll get more bus drivers, right?
We'll have at least one more, and maybe a second, maybe one other person. We are constantly trying to recruit drivers It's just a never-ending battle. Please understand, though, with that, that I know for the people who are not getting their children home exactly when they want them, the vast majority are getting home quickly.
Right.
It's it's a few buses that we have the issues with because one is distance and travel. Now traveling across town is not good,
especially with construction where it is and all of those situations. And well, we're talking about our goal has been the state law is to transport from 1.5 miles out, and we've always transported those who are closer. You see the apartments that are being built everywhere now, right? Hopefully they can walk.
And a lot of it has to do with the road they're on. We had a request, and we honored that request. It was very, very near a school, above a fourth grader, but we knew the streets and we knew there were no sidewalks.
I think that's part of the issue. I noticed a parent in my neighborhood was very concerned about the fact that in Regency Park there are no sidewalks, and she said, how on earth can a mom walk her 2 children to school on that road as people are trying to get to Erma-Siegel? And not only the elementary, but then they're trying to get to the middle school and high school as well. So it is a problem, but I know you're working on it just so that our families know as well. Because I think since I've seen letters that are addressed to all the board members, we've already gotten contacted by a couple, not many, just a few parents who had some issues. But, I hope they realize that it is the beginning of the year and it's going to take some time to work it out.
Mr. Barrett?
Sounds like that state law gave us a little bit of reprieve for buses this year, but I guess next year, if we keep this growth, or even 250 kids, we're going to have to think already buying new buses.
The good news is we don't have any expiring next year unless we run over the mileage on some of these other buses. We don't have any going out of date, but you don't want to. One year we have to buy 5 if we don't buy them incrementally. So I'd rather buy incrementally so we don't get hit for 5 buses or $500,000 in one shot.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So what I would say when people call me and complaining about the 4 o'clock bus is that we're probably going to get some more buses that are, we're working on the routes. What would be the right answer? We're working on the routes, and we've got some more bus drivers that are being trained.
Right. What we want to do first is balance the loads and shorten the travel time between the first school and the second school that they serve. Every bus driver does 2 routes every morning and every afternoon. They serve 2 schools. Right now, we're even bringing in some drivers are driving 3 routes because they're getting a short. Say at Pitter they drop off 40 kids at one apartment complex. They go to another one. They drop off another 40. Well, within 15 minutes they can go to another school. So we're looking at that possibility. We don't like that scenario, but until we can get other things worked out, that's one of the scenarios we're considering.
On the positive end, I've heard some very nice compliments about the drivers.
Drivers have been awesome. They've been dealing with all the pressures of this, and they have just been wonderful.
Ms. Phillips?
2 things. One, I would encourage anyone out there who thinks that they might like to work for us driving buses to apply. It's great to work with the kids. The second thing is, I think we need to, I don't know how we would talk to our city council folks about when we build new schools and we've got neighborhoods, maybe it would help the school system if we had sidewalks. So I don't know how that. But it does affect how many kids ride the bus.
Mr. Washington.
I know. I was saying this. I have a captive audience members here.
He's going somewhere.
All right, personnel report.
Yes. You have a personnel report before you. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have about those names that are on there. Well, not the names that are on there, but if you have any question about personnel, I'll be happy to talk with you about those at a later date. And I think we're ready for monthly revenue and expenditure and attendance, all of which go together.
Okay, the revenue expenditure report. What you have in your packet is the year-end report. And if you'll notice, the net income is negative $582,000 roughly. That is what comes out of fund balance. And remember, we had budgeted originally to take $2 million out. We had savings during the year. We had additional revenues during the year. Remember at the last board meeting, you added monies in for the revenue that came in. And so we actually were able to not spend $2 million, we got it down to spending $582,000. That's the really good news part of that. That will come out of fund balance that we had originally projected. The audit starts on our year-end budget in a week from this past Monday, and so we'll be getting all the information in for them. Actually, we're gathering it all now. Property and sales tax were up for the year a little bit. The big number, other local revenue, it looks like we got $5 million more. Please understand that was the money coming in to pay for the computers that we got. Mm-hmm. And that money is offset through the expenditure side on the next page. So that was the big thing. So we had 110% of anticipated revenue. Remember, part of it is because of the computers. On the expenditure side, you can see the areas where we were able to save and conserve money, and you can see under the other support, 72810, that's where the computers came out of, and that's why that one's so totally out of whack, is because of that particular item. So overall, we came out better than we had anticipated for the year. We did, as you know, anticipate spending fund balance dollars. We just didn't have to spend as much. But this is the stuff, this is the year-end report that'll go with the auditors. They'll be going through every line item in our books.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions on the year-end revenue?
All right.
Okay. The next item is the worksheet on students that we have in the district. I put at your desk tonight an updated version from the one that was in your board packet because we grew 20 kids from that day that I did the original one. Draw your attention to the bottom middle section. Our pupil, where it says regular ed PTR, our K through 3 pupil-teacher ratio is 19.53. That should grow a little bit as the students keep coming in. Our 4th through 6th grade is 20.91. Our overall district average is 20.02. That is still an extremely excellent number to have. The way the report's laid out is the same as before, but I did add an extra column in for your pre-K, now that since they're based at the schools and at the off-sites. So the first column after the school name is the pre-K column, so you can see how many classes, how many teachers, and what the ratio is. Special ed is now assigned underneath the school where they're at, where they're housed, and the grand total of the school building is the last column on the right. I added that column for you so you can see what is actually in those buildings. So if you look at, just for example, Pittard, there's not, in the yellow column to the right is 957 regular ed students and an additional 40 for 997 total students in that building. So as you know, the building capacity is a little over 1,000, and so we're right there again at that capacity. At Scales, we removed the portables, so we don't have those to worry about anymore. And Scales actually got closer to the number that was projected. The students did go to Overall Creek, and we didn't have as many backfill on that one. So they have 889 students in that building. But overall, you can see 7,926 students when you count everybody in the district that we're educating at this time. And it grew one today, but I didn't. No.
And that's an increase of what we ended last year?
Regular ed students was the number I gave you earlier today, 400.
433, I think.
Yeah, 433. That's regular. And then remember, you got to subtract the 100 pre-K off of that, so 333 roughly. But it does change every day.
Okay. Ms. Phillips?
I had concerns that we had zoned too many kids out of Northfield. I walked over there and saw several empty classrooms. And I did talk with Dr. Gilbert about that, but I do want us to keep our eyes on Northfield and think about that if we need to do any zoning adjustments. So.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Barrett?
I'm pleased that even given this growth we've had, we've been able to keep our parent-teacher ratio down, 20 to 1. I know it's creeping up a little bit, but it's still, where we'd like it. I do worry about it going higher if we keep getting students, and in that, but, and that also brings me to my next question. Ms. Phillips already asked it, but are we going to have to tweak the zoning lines here next year or even this year if we just keep, we're adding we just added 20 students within a couple days? I mean, it just seems we're adding students. And part of me thinks we're adding these students is because, one, we have the breakfast in the classroom, the free lunch now, all kids get that, and we went back to neighborhood schools, and I think people are happy with that. And
I haven't talked to Dr. Gilbert about this, but I don't feel we need to redo the zone lines yet because that's kind of rough to take a student from one school to another. Wouldn't want to do that. There are other options, and one is the controlled choice. And one of the things that when we made controlled choice out of Mitchell-Nielsen, that actually had some students who were going to be zoned to Northfield want to stay at Mitchell-Nielsen rather than forcing them to go to the school. So that that I think impacted it to some degree. Northfield is in an area that's basically landlocked with no additional growth, so we can look at developing the programs there, making them stronger, like we did at Mitchell-Nielsen this year. What I'm looking at is we're going to have to do something on that north side of town. You're going to have to do some additional building or a new building or an addition to another building to make that work. We have now, by opening up Overall Creek, we'll be at least 3 years good, but we are concerned with the Pittard and Reeves-Rogers side. Irma Siegel will continue to fill up as the apartments come on, and we've pulled some other people in the school from the areas. People are moving into that area again, so we're feeling that's going to be filled up pretty quick too. The two schools that we have capacity at really are Northfield and Cason Lane, the two schools.
Ms. Renier?
In our 5-year plan, we have thought of another school on the north side, correct?
We have not put it, every year that the city looks at the capital improvement plan, we will be adding into that capital improvement plan for another school, and it will not be 5 years out. We've got to move it up to
right. But I mean, we had discussed this in our 5-year plan last year or the year before or whatever. I've seen some beautiful property up on Compton Road. Is that it? What does it become when you go? Yeah, Compton Road. Thompson Lane when it becomes Compton Road. On the right-hand side, beautiful piece of property. I have no idea who owns it, but, Northfield, John Pittard is going to bust open at the seams. And maybe we should have kept those portables and moved them on over, because this is just really going to be a tough year.
One of the things that's really made a difference, and there are some numbers that have switched. For example, Black Fox, 5th grade, he has a teacher there that he's planning on hiring. There are a couple of spots here where I have talked with principals and said, have you thought about moving such and such teacher? And you all know that, how the PTR works. The thing that really got us this year, too, is in the K through 3, we have to have, when we hit that 20.49 average, then we have to add another teacher, and we have about 10 days to do it. So we're really watching carefully some of these numbers now. But we had several places you would watch it change over 3 or 4 days, and we'd say, okay, we have to have another teacher, because when we looked at the ratios in the 4 through 6, they were so large that, well, they were fine, but then when you pulled a teacher from there, if you only had a few teachers in that grade level, it shot us too high. So when you look at those numbers, those are the kinds of things that we've been dealing with. We've talked about the possibility, of course, we have some classes that we could move out of some of our schools, for example, at John Pittard. We, as you know, moved some students out of Reeves-Rogers to free up some room there, and they are full. But we just have to, it's almost a daily, as Gary said, that we're watching every day the numbers. We've been playing the number game now since, I guess, 3 weeks before school started to see what would happen. And it's fascinating. Great growth, and I'm really pleased that people are coming to our schools, and we welcome them with open arms. But it is a challenge, and it does make us think about what are we going to do next. Are we going to add on a school? Which there's that possibility that we could do that. And we've done that beautifully at Hopgood already. So I think those are some things the board's going to have to look at, though, in the coming months, is how do we handle the growth. The other thing, though, Gary's working on the comprehensive plan for the city, and I noticed that one of the things he put in there is when you're talking about projecting growth, it's been really hard to do because it's been totally up and down. Last year, we didn't see very much. This year, we're seeing a lot. So to project the growth becomes extremely difficult with the economics and the time and people moving. But we have seen growth, that is for sure.
Ms. Smith?
Oh, I wasn't paying.
You go ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to comment that knowing that some people who are moving here, if they're coming from the northern states, they don't begin school until Labor Day,
That's right.
after Labor Day. So there may be, we all know that, there may be an increase after Monday. But when you look at a PTR of 21 and a half in first grade, where those initial reading skills are so important, that concerns me. Also, some of these third grade numbers where, you know, they begin testing and their ratio is 21.67. Here's another 22.25. Those are critical numbers. And, you know, I don't know what we can do, but like I said, I think it's going to be a very interesting year, and we know how hard our teachers work and how hard our children work, and bless them all, they're going to do a great job, but, you know, if there's anything that we can do on our end to improve this situation, we need to do that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Pittard, because it's a geothermal school in the geothermal field, you cannot add portables at Pittard.
Can't add anything.
Can't add anything.
Can they add an addition?
No,
They wouldn't be able to do it, right?
No, it's pretty
So, new
much
school.
at its capacity. The only thing we could do is for the future is the two classrooms that are pre-K now, we would probably have to move them to another location.
So what about Mitchell Nelson? So they have 200 more kids than they had last year. And is that correct? And then there were, what is the capacity of Mitchell Nelson, and how did that all work? Maybe, you know, how did that work that they have such an increase?
When we went to control choice, I think that, and I'll let Mr. Anderson respond to this more than I, but I think that what you saw is you saw a lot of the students that decided to stay there. And I don't have the exact number.
Last year, they ended the year at 650 kids between the two schools, so they've grown roughly 90 kids.
Now we have, does that include the pre-K?
No, I was just talking about not counting pre-K.
Okay.
So in the building, there are more.
90 students more.
Yeah, because we added two best classes, and we added two pre-K classes. So you got 4 classrooms there, 2 by pre-K and 2 by the best program at that school. So the school has, you know, you take, again, if you have to move a pre-K, because pre-K is only a 1-year thing, so there's no real continuity for the next year. So even if you had to move that, you could gain 40 slots in that school with no problem.
So did we not put a capacity on, could we have reduced, like set a certain number of kids for the Leader in Me program? I mean, you know, that were not in that zone?
With control choice, typically, I'm going to leave that to we always have left it up to the principal to determine, right? Because they know the capacity of their schools.
Yes, we leave that up to the principal to determine how many they can take in the controlled choice part. Because it's a zone school, they have to make sure there's room for the zone students who live in that community.
Right.
So she stopped accepting kids, and she says she has a waiting list of students who want to come there, which is, you know, that's great that people want to come there. But we had to stop the ones because you have to leave room for the zone.
I think there's some things that will help with balancing that out on that side of town with those schools, though. I think there's some things, there's some building that's planned, and then I think also some things we'll be doing as far as focusing Northfield. Dr. Lord is very, very much wanting to go with the STEM school, and we've already contacted MTSU, and we're partnering with them We've had some of their teachers that have trained in the engineering as elementary, and they're actually going to Clarksville to take a look at one of the schools up there. So I think there'll be some things there that help balance. Plus, I think that as far as next year with Mitchell Nelson, I think certainly she won't be taking as many controlled choice students, and so then it'll be a matter of grandfathering, and I think that'll help. But we're actively looking at those schools to see what's happening there.
Okay. Ms. Phillips?
I appreciate that, Dr. Gilbert, because I think it's important to the neighborhood. And when I see those empty classrooms and other schools at capacity, that's a real concern to me. And I wonder how many students, regular classroom students, were down from last year at Northfield, between the controlled choice school and between any zoning issues. Do you happen to know?
I haven't.
Well, maybe you could just email it to me. If you don't have it handy there. But it is a concern. I believe it's very important to keep the neighborhood schools strong because,
Right. And Northfield's a tremendous school.
It is.
I mean, there's
It's awesome.
no question
It's an
about
awesome
that.
school.
And with a wonderful principal, assistant principal. And I think what they're doing there is very positive, and I think I'm not really worried about that school.
Okay, good.
I really feel good about all of our schools as far as that. I think the growth, I think what we've done as professional learning communities, I think that just the collegiality, and especially when you look at some things happening across the state, I think it's tough on teachers. What I hear from our teachers that go other places is, in fact, I had one that chased me down at Case Lane and said how much they appreciated being here. So teaching is difficult, no matter where you are. No question about it. Education is tough. But I will say that I think that the things that we've done as far as gifted, the things we've done as far as professional learning communities, the things that we've done as far as training teachers, and with the intervention that we've done, with special ed that we've done, I think that we're seeing, I think people understand the why behind it and are glad that we've moved in that direction, or we would be tremendously behind, because some systems are just now implementing those things, and they're having a tough time.
The normal trend on a rezoning, when you allow grandfathering for 2 years, the normal trend is it doesn't phase out until 3 years. Now, what's going to, I think, blow that out of the water in this one is because we grew so much, it impacted the normal trends. Because, I knew that Pittard would have more this year than next year, other than new people moving in, because of grandfathering rules. So, and with a 2-year window to grandfather and their siblings, they more kids would stay at their zone school from when they were previously.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions pertaining to? Okay. All right, other business?
We need to name someone as a textbook specialist. I don't know what other name we want to call that, but we do have to have someone designated so that if parents have questions or the community has questions about textbooks, then they can call that person, and I would like for that person to be Karen Hawkins.
Okay.
And she's thrilled. You can tell by the look on her face.
You don't need a motion or anything
No.
for that, do you?
I don't think so.
All right. Ms. Phillips?
There's something I'd like to add on the agenda. Is this the appropriate time?
Think so?
Okay. I would love to hear an update about the new computers / training for the children and the testing. Those 3 components mixed together. The new computers, the testing, and the training the kids are getting.
You want that now, or you want
No.
that next
Next
meeting?
time,
Okay.
next time.
Okay. Ms. Renier?
I'm not sure what you mean by testing, but I wonder if we could add in Ms. Davis, Lewis Davis, I'm sorry, I always get it wrong. Can we get, I know when Ms. Maddox was in that position, we got a list of the tests that would be given throughout the school year. I don't know if she has that yet. I know we recently received the information about those that would be doing the testing from the state.
On City School's website.
Yes. By state law, we have to post those on the
there she is.
website.
I'm sorry.
So they're on the website, Ms. Renier.
With a detailed explanation of what each is, their report that comes out.
Under where? Where?
Under, thank you.
Student information?
This department's with student information, and it's called assessment.
I got it.
The tab is assessment.
Okay, thank you.
State law requires that now. We had to have that up by the end of July.
Assessment info.
Ms. Smith?
It's like a misnomer.
Well, kind of to add on to the assessment, I would like kind of a review of how things, I'm getting a lot of reports from different schools that are very different from one another about what's the acronym for the ones
Yeah,
that.
NW. And we can do that. Do you want to do that tonight, or do you want to do it because we're in the middle of it, or you want to wait?
It's not on the agenda.
Okay, all right.
Right, so just,
Okay.
but I have
NWEA?
been getting a lot of different feedback from, this is great to, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, we could hear a little bit about that
That's
later.
what we're hearing. And that's why they're in the schools every day helping them with it, because a lot of it has to do with scheduling. Yeah.
Mr. Barrett?
I don't know, not tonight, we can do it next one, but update on joint meeting or some sort of meeting with our state legislative body? I know we
I
talked about
have
it.
not contacted any of them. I was kind of waiting until the election was over,
Okay,
but we will.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
The other thing that we had mentioned, we each have a city council liaison, and we also had mentioned in our retreat possibly maybe setting up a schedule so that we are attending city council meetings. I don't know if we want to bring that up next meeting or not, whether or not to set a schedule, or if that's necessary since we have a partner, so to speak. Can I say one thing, kind of, sort of?
I can't wait.
Me like
In
you're on a roll.
closing, yeah, I've been on a roll. In closing, I know that this has been an issue for quite some time, and it was an issue of Dennis's. But I would like to thank the Parks and Rec Department for deciding to take over, or however this has occurred, to deal with the tennis courts. You know, we've been dealing with this back and forth for years, and so I'm glad to see it's coming to fruition, and thank you, Parks and Rec.
I don't know whether I'm legal. No, never mind. I'll do it later. Anything else coming before the board tonight? I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Barrett, second.
Second.
Mr. King, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.